the Experts. So today we're going to be talking about sales web forms. We're going to talk a little bit about the different web forms that FrankConnect provides, and then the opportunities that you have to leverage those in different parts of your sales process. So we're going to try to improve our efficiency here on the sales side of things by using our web forms. So that's what the first 10 minutes of our 15 minutes about our Ask the Experts will be about today. And then, as always, you can ask anything you like. Related to web forms, unrelated to web forms, related to other things as well. You can go ahead and raise your hand at any point during the question period, and I will go ahead and unmute your line, and you can go ahead and ask your question verbally. Otherwise, you can go ahead and chat your message to me at any time, and I'll take questions as we go forward. It's just me today, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Liz Colon. I'm a Senior Education Consultant here at FrankConnect. So again, we'll be talking about the topic of the week initially, then we'll open the floor for any question you have about any module. Inevitably, someone will stump me. It happens all the time, and that's okay. I'm pretty good with follow-up, so we'll make sure we get your questions answered, whether it's through me or the help desk. During the week after this call, if you have any questions, feel free to send them to me via training@frankconnect.com. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions during the week and make sure that you get any questions that you have between sessions answered. So here's what's coming up next. We have through February at this point. We'll continue to publish this calendar as more topics become available. Next week is Pro Tips for Opener Checklists. The week after that is Improving Sales Forecasting with the Heat Meter. And then we'll end off February with Smart Groups to improve lead handling. And so we're going to talk about all these things in the month of February, so I look forward to having you on my calls then. All right, so let me jump out of the PowerPoint today and hop into the FrankConnect system. And I want to go ahead and show you that your typical path to web forms is going to be by going to the admin section. So we're going to go to admin, we're going to click on sales, and we're going to click on manage web form generator. And so here inside of the web form generator, you are presented with 4 different web forms. For those of you who are on the call who might have migrated recently or who may have come from a custom software package by FrankConnect, typically web forms were something that was sort of custom coded for you by our development team, and then you had very little access to make edits to those things as perhaps your organizational needs changed or your data collection points changed. And so with the rollout of Sky, we've put the power in your hands to make sure that you can manipulate these web forms in whichever way you need to. And so FrankConnect is going to give you 4 standard forms: the lead web page, the qualification details, the personal profile, and the application form. Now, these are standard forms. But in terms of our discussion about efficiency and improving your process, many of you may still be sending out a paper application or maybe a PDF application. The benefit to using the FrankConnect web form is that the data comes into the system right away. So rather than you having to transfer the data over into the lead record, the lead fills out the application via the web form, and the data is automatically entered into the record without you having to make any edits to it. And we talk a little bit about the use of the application form in our ATE and in our Advanced Campaigns and Workflows class, where we talked about the potential to include the application URL for the web form in an email or a template that we send out to our leads. And so the same is true for any of our other web forms. You can choose, and I've paused here on my screen for those of you who may be wondering. So if you are not comfortable perhaps with placing this information on your website, or you feel like your leads will be less likely to fill it out because it's listed on your website, then you have the opportunity to include a link in an email to your lead asking them to fill out any of this information. And so of course we can use these web forms to streamline our process and be more effective in gathering the data that we need from our leads. So I commonly review the lead web page because it's the foundation for everything that you're going to do in terms of lead collection. The lead web page is your basic inquiry form. If you were to go on a website, I was on this website recently, so we'll just pull it up here. If you were to go onto any website and click on, information that you may be gathering, you'll see a basic web form. Okay. So the thing about the FranConnect web form is that it's a little bit more expansive than these 4 or 5 fields that are listed here. And depending on your organization, you may decide that you want to go ahead and gather a large amount of data at the inquiry phase, because gathering that large amount of data has the ability to weed out some people who may not be that serious. Or you may choose to only include 5 fields because you want as many people as possible coming through, because the more people you talk to and educate, the potential for them gathering more information and making a better decision is available. And so these web forms can be manipulated by you by editing the web form or editing what we've given you. Okay, and so in this particular case, we've got our lead web page, we've got our form title, and this is just a basic lead inquiry, and I can choose whether or not I want to display it. I'll give it a description, just as we would see in other areas of the FranConnect system, and then we can go ahead and take a look at some of the setup items that have already been created here for us for this particular web form. And this is a single page with 2 columns. And the default tab alignment is to the left, meaning that the name of the field will be the left, and the actual field that the lead has to fill in will be to the right of that name. You also have the option to do top and bottom, but I don't know about you. Sometimes people get confused and they think, they may enter data into the wrong field looking at the top of something and maybe confusing it with the bottom below the field. And so I would just say keeping it at left is the best way to kind of avoid any confusion. And then this iframe width and height. If you are placing this web form onto your website, the iframe width and height may be adjustable. And that would be something that you want to talk to your web developer. In the case where we're looking at this organization, we don't have a lot of space to insert our web form into this square. And so your web developer is going to help you in determining how much space you have and then what adjustments you may need to make to this width and height to ensure that the web form you create here in the back end of FranConnect can actually fit in the box that you have available on your website. Okay. The form URL can be modified and adjusted by you. In this particular case, we have lead page, but it could be lead inquiry page. You can create the ending to this URL to be whatever might stand out for you or be identifiable by you. And so feel free to make that adjustment. Once you're done filling out this page or making adjustments to what we've provided to you, you'll click Save and Next. Now here, you're presented with the fields that come with the web form. Okay? If you want to get rid of a field, because in this particular case we only have 5 fields, right? If you want to get rid of fields, you can easily do that by clicking the X on any of these boxes. Okay, so we don't need an address 2, we just have an address 1. Maybe we're not pulling investment time frame in the initial inquiry because we just want to speak to these people, and so we might delete some of these other things and get them out of the way. In the event that we decide, you know what, this web form that FranConnect has provided to us isn't expansive enough, we actually are interested in gathering more data at the inquiry phase and limiting the number of leads that come in to our organization, then we can add elements by using this available fields tab on the top left-hand side. So we can go ahead and add in the address. We can go ahead and add in other things like county. We can go ahead and add in the multiple different items that we want to go ahead and add to include some elements from the qualification page. Once we're all done making modifications to this, we'll go ahead and click Save and Next, which will present us with how we want the system to respond when this web form or when this inquiry comes in. In this particular case, assuming we're placing this form onto our website, we want the FranConnect system to respond with the following things. When this lead comes in, they're automatically placed into new lead status. The lead owner, the person responsible for this lead, will be assigned based on the rules that our sales administrator has set up. Next up is the campaign name. So if as soon as this lead is coming in, we're going ahead and sending a campaign, we'll identify that campaign. And then we'll go ahead and identify where this lead came from. So by default, this lead came from the company website from our lead web form. If you're an organization using brand hierarchy, you will have the ability to identify if we use this web form, this is the brand they're coming in from. Now, for those of you who are thinking, I don't really understand what that means, Liz, we have organizations that are consultants for 5 or 6 or 7 different brands. They can use a single FranConnect to manage all 5 to 7 brands, at which case this particular web form would be identifiable by the brand by selecting that option. Now when I click Finish here, I'm presented with my iframe embed code, which is not populating for me right this moment, sorry guys, or a host URL. Now the host URL is what we're going to use in the event or in the case where we are including a web form in an email, like an application or the personal profile or the qualification form. So if we decide that those specific very detailed forms require that we send a link off, we can capture that link and then place that link into one of our emails. I'm going to pull up another instance of this here so I can better show this. Okay, so I pulled up another instance of this so we can go ahead and see what the iframe embed code looks like. In this particular case, we've got this long iframe code. What this does is this allows your web developer to input this information into your website so that the web form you created at FranConnect appears in the box on your website. Okay, and so this iframe embed code is something that you're going to want to provide to your web developer or IT guy or whomever is responsible for your website, and potentially you're working with this person in conjunction with the creation of this form to ensure that it meets the the specific height and width restrictions that your website has. With that said, this embed code, though, allows you to use this on your website so that when the lead enters their data on your website, it's automatically in FrankConnect. There's no API or third-party connector. It's simply the form on your website connected to FrankConnect. So that data comes in right away. Okay, and that's what we really want. And so in this particular case, when we're talking about the lead inquiry form, we're gonna want to put this in as an embed in our website. With the other forms, we have the same availability, like with qualification, for example. Qualification is one of our most vast web forms in terms of, as is the application, but they're pretty vast in that we're asking these leads for quite a lot of details about themselves so that we can go ahead and make a good decision about whether or not this person can move forward. Now, your qualification form, for example, as I mentioned, is pretty vast. So you can go ahead then and make adjustments to this using the available fields along the left-hand side and either pulling things out or entering things into the form that are required. Okay, now this is one of the forms that when we're done making adjustments to it, we're going to go ahead and use the URL and send this off and ask our lead to complete this form when they're done. Now in this particular case, this is a qualification, and so we may place them into pre-qualification status when they're filling out this form. Okay, and so we want to make sure that this back end does actually match that. Now, some of these aren't necessarily relevant. The source details don't need to be modified. So some of these just may be kept as select because we're not going to make any adjustments to what's already been created for this form. So I mentioned that in my last ATE about campaigns and workflows, and then in my campaigns and workflows class, that we talk about how we actually place these links into a template or a campaign. And in this particular case, I've actually placed the qualification details into, the application link into an application email that I send out. And so this looks a little bit like this. And I'm using some keywords here. Thank you for your continued interest in our franchise opportunity. Please use this link to formally apply. And then they can go ahead and click this link and it will take them to the form. And then you've gone ahead and set up this automatic messaging that goes out, or perhaps it's just a template that you're putting in, but this takes away your need to use a PDF, a fillable PDF that you might be using, or something like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and open for questions. I've got a few on the line here, so I'll kind of work my way up. Kelly, regarding the patch, I don't know anything, don't know any recent information. I've been in the weeds with some other stuff today and haven't been able to ask, so I will follow up with you on that one. Yeah, so Amy, you can pick and choose what fields you want to be included in the application form. So you have the complete ability here to modify that form in whatever way that you see fit. So if you don't want to overwhelm them in the beginning, at whatever phase you decide you want to gather that data, you can. And with that said, one of the sort of little pieces of information that I missed here is your ability to copy a form and customize it. So if, for example, you want to minimize the number of fields that are on your lead web page or minimize the number of fields that are on your application form, but you still want to keep the original there in the event that you decide to maybe change your methodology and you want to see what FrankConnect had originally provided, you can actually copy what's already there and customize it. And so don't feel like you have to customize what we've given you and make so many changes to it that you wouldn't recognize it in its standard version. You can copy and customize these as well. Kelly. Um, you know, Kelly, she's asking, is there a way to limit people's access to the form? She's got a spammer out in the Ukraine who keeps filling out her lead form. You know, Kelly, I don't know the answer to that. If we can, like we have a do not call list, if we can add him to the do not spam me list, so I will follow up with you on that one. Um, I do know that when I was using my website back in the day, and we were using a different, we didn't have Fran Connect, so we were using a different web form system, that there was like a spam folder. But in that particular case, leads weren't being entered for me, on my behalf directly into my system. I was getting an email and then I was entering them into the system manually. So I'll follow up with you on that. Okay, so Jamila, you're asking about the visit page under the web form generator. The web form generator is specific to web forms, separate from the form generator, which allows you to modify the tabs inside a record. So to answer your question, Jamila, under sales, there are two form generators, and this happens pretty frequently, that we'll go into one or another thinking that we're in the right place and we're accidentally not there. So the web form generator is specifically for forms that you expect your lead to fill out for themselves, and then that data is automatically here in the Fran Connect system. The form generator is what allows you to make modifications to the tabs and fields within the sales module itself. So if I continue through here, you'll see here this blue hyperlink allows me to click on visits, and then I can go ahead and make modifications to the fields that appear on the visit page. I hope that answers your question. Carlos, that's a really great question. So Carlos is saying that he has an old candidate who filled out a new web form, and the new web form didn't come in as a new lead, but rather overrode the information in the old file. That's a really great question, Carlos. I'm going to have to follow up with you on that one. I've not heard that before. Okay, I will follow up with you on that one, Carlos. Jamila, also, how do I create a link for leads to access this information for their discovery day? Jamila, let me unmute you. I'm hoping that you are connected to me. Jamila, can you talk to me a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish? And I'm happy to answer. Yeah, okay, great.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. So basically what I'd like them to do is kind of like how we called it a PFS, or personal financial statement, which is basically the lead qualification details.
Right.
How you have that link that was embedded into the email. Essentially what we want to do is when leads are moving through the process and they decide they want to book for what we call join the package or discovery days, we want them to be able to click on that link and enter the information for that visit, such as where they're staying, if any allergies that we need served there, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, I want it to really be put onto the the lead to fill that information out so that it will directly go to that visit tab in their record in Randstad, if that's at all possible to do, kind of like the qualification form.
Yeah. Okay. So I believe so. We can go ahead and take a look right now. For me to just repeat back what I understand, you would like to have a clickable link that you send out that says, "We'd like to know more about where you're staying for Discovery Day. Go ahead and click this link and let us know." And then, assuming that you've made modifications to the form generator visits tab to meet the organizational needs, you then want this web form to be able to collect those details from the sales lead for you.
Exactly.
Um, Single page is probably good. Maybe we want 2 columns. Looks like left is going to be our best option. We'll kind of leave this here and we'll put Discovery Day. We'll do save and next. Um, Yeah, it's not allowing me to pull any Discovery Day details into this. Let me follow up with you on that. Let me test this out here real quick. Yeah, it's just giving me like the ability to pull the tabs of the record that seem to have the largest data points, not including visit. So let me follow up with you, Jamila, on that and make sure that I'm not just missing it here in my training environment.
Okay, that sounds good.
And then
Yeah, I
if,
don't know.
yeah,
Would
go
we
ahead.
be able to create fields, or it's only from a list of specific drop-down fields that we're able to pull from?
So if you create a field in the system, then the field is available in the web form for you to pull down. But that's a whole lot of fields that you have to create for a page that already exists. So let
Right. Okay.
me so let me go ahead and put this information here as a follow-up for you, Jamila, because I want to make sure that we're not either missing it, or if we are, that it's something that I place into our idea portal for development.
Okay.
Because I suspect that if you were asking for it, you were not alone. And Kelly, who is my great new friend at DKI, who's also a trainer, has validated that she doesn't have visits in her system either. So I will follow up with you on that one. Good
Great.
question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So what additional questions do we have? These have been really great. Um, if you create a tab in the form generator, I have all tabs disabled right now because we had there was just too much junk here and me trying to show everybody stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look. So Kelly's asking if I add a field, does it show up? And if I add a tab, does it show up as an available field? So we're going to take a look here. It, it does not show up. So I just reactivated the demographics tab and it's not showing. Okay, Jamila, you had another question? Kelly saying product enhancement, yes. A lot of times these ATEs are great, especially when we're exploring features like web forms, because everybody has a slightly different use case. You know, the use cases that we think here, lead page, application qualification, and or primary info, you know, we think of all those use cases and potentials, and then you know, someone else says, oh, I have a use case where I want to use it this way. So that's great for us to hear that and be able to implement these things in the system. So I never look at these system enhancements as, you know, as criticism or anything. I look at them as, you know, everybody has a use case that, of course, can be explored. And so it's great to have Jamila, in your particular example, understanding why you might want the discovery data details to be there and available in the web form. So that's awesome. If the fields that you have, Jamila, so I'm thinking that what you may be asking, and I'll unmute you again. You're still unmuted, actually. If the fields that you are asking for, you want to potentially let us know if that's what you're saying, I'm happy to take that and put that in the idea portal as well as a potential enhancement to the visits page.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll email them.
Yep, perfect. Go ahead. What other questions do y'all have? I'll give it a few moments. Okay, Kel, I might have to open you up. Give me just a second. Kelly's got a question about the form generator. So let me go ahead and come out. Kelly, you're off mute, I believe.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's afternoon here. I'm a little ahead of you. My day's almost over.
Just 3 hours.
All right, so I'm coming here into the form generator. Why would I want to add a page instead of a tab? Tell me what you mean.
If you go to the web form generator, mine has add tab, and I thought maybe it would pull in the other tabs in the sales module where you could choose to pull in tabs you created or the visit tab, but it actually opens. Go to the web form generator.
I know exactly what you're talking about now. So I can't remember which one of these has tabs set up. So the form format here is multi-page, and if I click Save and Next, these are tabs. So instead of setting it up as a single page, you could do it as a multi-page where you have multiple different tabs. So it just depends on the organization. So I use this sort of thought process when we're talking about field ops because sometimes when someone looks at an extremely long page of data collection points, they become overwhelmed. And there's also opportunity for us to miss fields because it's one long scrolling page. versus when we do a multi-page layout where we have tabs, like in this example. This allows us to fill out this information, feel the sense of accomplishment that we filled out the personal information and go on, but it's also more or better organized for the lead, um, and making sure they can fill out this information and not missing any fields, by accident because the page is long. So I think it just depends on your organization and your organizational style, as to whether or not you choose a single page where all of the information would be on a page or multiple tabs.
Okay, so the tabs are actually opening up the other pages when you choose multiple page.
Yes.
It's not, I was thinking that you'd have on the bottom, go to the next page, of the
Huh?
form. But no, I was thinking like SurveyMonkey, when you go to the
Mm-hmm.
next page, you're actually clicking next,
Right.
so that's what I was thinking pages would do. But this is, you're actually creating tab to go to the next page.
Page. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, Carlos, I'm going to unmute your line, because I think you have a great point, but I want to understand it a little bit more in your particular use case. So, Carlos, you're unmuted. Would you go ahead and share? I see you are self-muted. Of course, you're free to chat it to me. Carlos is saying that he'd like to see more if-then scenarios inside of, or if-then questions inside of web forms. There are only a limited type of fields at this point that allow that. So I'd love to know more about what you're looking for. If you want to chat that to me or email it to me, Carlos, feel free to do that. You are presently unmuted, so if you wanted to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and elaborate a little bit further. Oh, Kelly. Okay, Kelly, let me unmute you. Okay, you're unmuted, Kelly. If you're talking, Kelly, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Perfect.
So for if-then fields that I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking of are in Info Manager, you can create a field that is dependent on another field. So for example,
Yeah.
country and state,
Mm-hmm.
and ours are country, state, zip code.
Okay.
Um, so in sales, same thing there. Um,
Okay.
and so in the web form, will it follow that same if-then functionality that you have on the form itself?
So these fields are being pulled directly from the system. Um, so as far as I know, they should be following that same methodology. So if you're creating a web form and information manager, to your point, Kelly, because web forms are an information manager these days, then the field that you create or the dependency that you create should still work inside the form, inside the web form.
Okay, so in sales, if I, taking the country, state, zip example,
Mm-hmm.
if I create the web form to pull in that data, if I choose USA, it's going to give me all the states, and if I choose Washington, it's going to give me all the zip codes. Um, for the person who's filling out the web form to have that data. Or I'm thinking of, if it doesn't do that, is if they put in a value that doesn't exist in our system
Mm-hmm.
because it's the wrong value, they do a typo,
Mm-hmm.
then it won't capture the data. So,
Right.
but that's an example of country, state, zip that's common. But other,
Yes,
um,
source is one, right? Like source is one in the
yeah,
lead web form that I'm thinking Carlos is probably, we've got the source category and then the source details, right? So if I choose advertisement, I can then choose it came from the New York Times or whatever, right? So those are those dependencies that you're talking about in your if-thens. Yeah, so I understand. Kelly, do you have any thoughts about how you could expand that or what types of fields you could expand that to?
Um, Not off the top of my head. Well,
Yeah.
ones we have
Okay.
in Info Manager. So if I were to create a web form for Info Manager, education, you know, so if you're going to you need certification on a certain course that you took. So we have the category and then the course name and then the type of certification you want for having taken that course,
Right.
that kind of thing. So
Gotcha.
it's a 3-point dependency.
Right.
Um, and so if I want them to fill in their education courses that they've taken, can I have the web form follow that same dependency?
Yeah, so and I'll double check this, but as far as I know, these fields in the system are exact replicates of the fields that you have here in the form generator. So, and let me rephrase, the fields that you have in the web form are exact replicates of the fields that you have in the form generator. And the reason why I know that is because if I have a field inside of a web form that is not required right now, but I decide that I want to make it required, I have to come in and mark it required in the web form. I'm sorry, in the form generator, and then I have to get rid of that field and add that field back into the web form itself in order for it to read that required field. So I know it's pulling in the requirements that we're placing on fields into the web form, if that makes sense. And
Okay,
so,
so if we have a required field in the in the form generator, then if that will also be required on the web
generator,
form generator.
yes.
Okay, that's
Yes.
good.
Yes. So,
It's the dependency. Like
mhm,
if they pick county, does
mhm,
state become required? You know, if they pick lead source, does lead source details become required?
required. Okay.
So if lead source is not required, but the next the next one is,
Mhm.
um, that's where I'm going with. They might not want to fill out the lead source, but if they do fill out lead source, then we also need the lead source details.
Right. Yeah, I'll follow up on this one. I don't um okay, I know I can sync the fields, but I can't. Yeah, in sales, it's not looking like I have that same dependency option and that I have an information manager right now.
Try the field type. If you add a field, try, I think it's under field type.
Yeah, because country is not allowing me. Add new field. Yeah, we've got country, country, state. Oh, we do have dependent here. Okay. Yeah, but this is the limitation. So, all right, Carlos, I've got your driving home the point here just in in conversation, so I appreciate that. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, about the syncing actually.
Okay.
If you've created a field in sales that syncs to Info Manager, which is allowable now, and
Mhm.
you have them fill it out in sales via the web form, um, would that be synced to Info Manager as well? And where I'm thinking of an example is we do expansions. We take the lead back into sales, um, and so the would that be synced with records in FIM, or would it just be synced when you actually move it over from sales back to FIM?
As far as I know, it's synced when the record is moved, but I can see if there's any further, um,
Synchronization.
yeah, synchronization than that.
Uh,
All right, good questions. Okay. Any other questions?
yeah,
Go ahead.
I was looking at adding a form or adding a field to sales, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought I used to see sync in there, and I thought at one point I saw sync to FIM, but I don't see it in mine right now. Just curious if you see it.
It's dependent on the field. So in my experience, it's not available on every single field. So
Ah,
like the address field, for example, I can sync sales to information manager, and then I have to select exactly which one I want, which address in info manager I want to sync with. Um,
that might be based on tab as well. I was actually just going with the first one, which was co-applicant, which
mhm,
doesn't exist in Info
right.
Manager.
So it's specific to those fields that the sync is sort of allowed, where the sync is allowed.
Yeah, like primary info. Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And I can, like, if I create a field in sales, I can also create the field in FIM or information manager, and I can set up to sync those two fields. So I can create fields that can be sync cross module as well. But I'm sort of limited in some of these fields that I have inside the system in my ability to sync. Um, and I can't speak to why some fields are that way and some aren't. Potentially that field doesn't exist in Information Manager, or potentially the field is pulling data from somewhere else, which I know happens sometimes where, um, we have data that's coming in from some other place, and so we can't modify or sync those fields because that data is coming in another way.
Yeah, the primary info seems to match up with center info. Or actually, no,
Uh-huh.
there's agreement. So yeah, you actually can pick which tab in FIM Info
Yep.
Manager
Mm-hmm.
that, that you can choose to sync it to. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Uh, I did have another question about the web form generator,
Uh-huh.
and sorry if you already answered it. How do
It's
you
okay.
insert images into your web form?
Like the captcha image,
No, I was thinking like the logo image.
it's in settings. Let me see.
Yeah, I saw where you could change text and you could change background colors and get really creative, but I didn't see the drag in the image.
Okay. Text settings, field input, field label. Yeah, good point, Cal. Um, yeah, because we want this to be identifiable as your organization.
We'll go
I
to the one
just
that has our lead web form. Yeah.
Yeah, the problem with my Orion in my test system is my form settings aren't popping up.
Mine didn't have it either.
It doesn't have form settings here?
It has form settings, but it doesn't have the image drag and
Okay,
drop.
okay. Yeah, because we want that not so relevant when we're talking about embedding, but more relevant when we're talking about using the URL. Because if we're embedding, we don't want the image because we're embedding it into our website where we already have our logo. But when we're talking about the URL, we want that branded header so that it's recognizable. Otherwise, it may make someone pause to fill it out. So I get it. Let me follow up on that one.
I think I just found it. If you go to the
Okay.
lead web form at the very top, you have the header, and if you click on, if you, so if you click on that, it opens up the full editor, and
Oh, and then you can
there,
include your image. Yeah.
so
You're
that,
so
yeah,
good.
'cause I knew we had, we could change our logo from the Friend Connect logo, and
Mm-hmm.
we're using Division, so we actually have two logos,
Gotcha.
and two lead forms for the Division, so that was where I was going with that. Thank you.
Perfect. No, thank you. You're the one who figured out the answer. You asked a good question. For those of you who are wondering, Kelly is a master at Friend Connect, so
So I'm looking now to see how do you add a header.
this here.
Yeah, if you were to create a whole new web form, how would you add a header? Like if you wanted to name it your franchise application, and it's in big, bold letters so they know what they're filling out. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking in terms of like, the when you're creating a campaign in sales, it's very simple, drag image, drag header, drag column,
Yeah.
drag. And so that's what I was looking for. How do you actually make the system give you the space to put in what you're looking for? Like I can see you add buttons, you can change form
Yeah.
settings, but how do
So
you get the form to have that?
yeah, so I just came in and I named my form and then I double click to add header and then I can add my logo. Is this what you're asking?
Yeah, so say you want to add a button. How would
Uh-huh.
you add a place on the web form to add a button? How would you get the web form to accept that that's what
The
you're trying
like
to
your
add?
next page or whatever.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So I see button settings, but I don't see like insert button, um, or drag the button.
Yeah, into the actual form. Um, so if we do, let me go back. I think the buttons are standard here on these web forms. Um, you don't have the ability to modify the button. I don't think. That's not what I wanted. So let's take a look. Yeah, so you see submit and reset are just here
Hmm.
as standard items, so they can't be dragged and dropped like with the templates. But I think that that's to your point
Well,
earlier.
it says drop here. So if you look, I just created a blank page, a blank test
Mm-hmm.
web form, and it
Yeah, but
has,
this is dropping your fields there.
oh, okay.
Yeah, this wants you
So,
to take your fields and drop them in, which allows the drag and drop functionality. But in terms of buttons, I think these are hard coded. And so unlike the templates where we now have the ability to kind of drag and drop and manipulate the way that we want to, these are hard coded here in the web forms.
okay. So a workaround would be get an image of a button, insert it as an image, and then click a hyperlink, put a hyperlink on the button,
Yes.
and just basically create your button.
Yes, if you don't like the ones that we have here, sure.
Well, if you
But
need more,
oh, if you need more, sure.
like,
Drag and drop functionality
yeah.
in
So
web.
where I can see possibilities of that is if you actually wanted to take them to another website, like they wanted more information about, this field, or if, like a pop-up, or they wanted more information that relates to filling out the application. We have like a set of instructions, that kind of thing. And so to add a functionality to the page that doesn't exist in the form generator itself.
Gotcha.
So
I understand.
yeah, it looks like if you were to double click on footer or header, it does bring you to the full standard editor, and
Yeah,
with
so then
with that
to your
full
point,
functionality. Yep.
yeah, you could insert your hyperlink and insert your image,
Mhm.
or just insert your image.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. But I think it's a good point to be able to move those buttons and customize these forms a little bit more. I know, you have that ability with a lot of the, gravity forms and what's the other one I used to use? I can't think of the name of it, but there's a lot of different form companies out here that give you the same type of sort of expansiveness that we've seen with the development of templates. So I think that that's a good point that we could take that same sort of UI and implement it here in the web form section. And then to Jamila's point, make sure that all of the fields and tabs are available for data collection.
Now, if you have, say, a 6-page, 10-page application or what have you, or an update, and I'm thinking in terms of both sales and info manager,
Right.
um, and you have the link to the web form, um, and they want to be able to come back to it. They don't need to save. Just correct me if I'm wrong. They don't need to actually a save and complete later. If they come back to that form, if they click the link in the email to that form later, it will automatically populate the data. It's a copy of the form in our system, so it'll automatically populate what they've already filled out. Is that correct?
I don't know that that's true, Cal, because if I don't believe that that's true in sales at all.
Qualification details did that, at least in our legacy system. If when you
It
went
would
back
pull
to it, it would show you what was in that form already.
if you had already filled it out as a lead.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just wasn't sure if it does that for forms that you create. I would think if you're modifying the existing qualifications
Well,
form, it would.
it functions the same way. So if it did that in the original, then my assumption would be it would do it again. That might not be a fair assumption.
Not necessarily. Yeah, things change from legacy to the
I
SaaS
know, I know,
platform.
I know. But I just think of that as a potential
I'll try it and let you know.
privacy sort of violation. But I don't know. So,
Well, where that leads then is if you do have a 6-page form you want them to fill out and they need to come back to it, if they gather information, like an annual survey,
right, right, right.
and they need to gather information, is there a way to,
Save and
if
continue.
that's exactly, if that information doesn't copy what's already in the system, can they save and come back to it? I'll have to get in here and play a little bit.
Yeah, as far as I know, these are just, I enter in the data and I submit it. Um, I've never experienced that it's like a sort of an ongoing. Now, it makes perfect sense. The use case provided is perfect sense. If I'm a sales lead too, and I get all those tabs of the application, I don't have all my assets and liabilities in front of me right at this moment. I don't have my bank statements or whatever else I might need in order to give you my, I don't know, whatever dollar figure is in some of those fields, and so it makes perfect sense that I would potentially need to save and come back. Now let's look though at the application, since that's kind of a slightly different form than the one we've been looking at. That's not what I wanted to do though, guys. We are going over time and I didn't even realize it. So for those of you who have a hard stop, feel free to jump off the call. If you don't, then you can hang on here with us as we explore some of this. That's not what I wanted. There we go. It's my problem. I'm not copying right. Ay, ay, ay. There we go. Third time's a charm. Yeah, I just have a submit. Not sure at
If
least
you were to fill it out and you come back to it after, would it show you what you've already submitted?
already submitted. See, I don't think so, but if you're telling me that it did it historically, that's news to me. So I need to talk to development about that one, because the only way is if your web browser remembers the fields, you know, because if I'm submitting this as a new lead or as, yeah, I don't know. To me, that seems like a security issue, but I'm just trying to get in here in Orion. Let's see if we have any edits to that. There's save it next here on the application form. So I am saving this page. So it's the potential that that ability is here on this application form, since it's got the multi-page tab. All right, good deal. I will follow up with development on this, because save and next would save the data, right? But if all we have is submit, then my assumption would be that submit means that it's not going to save the data on the page. It'll save it once I click submit into Frame Connect, but if I come back to that page, it's going to be a blank page again. Now this, on the other hand, because I have save and next, I have the ability to save the data on this page and continue forward. If I don't continue forward and I click this again because I've saved it, my expectation would be that the data would be here. So let me follow up on that one in terms of development and making sure that all makes sense.
Yeah, I just tried it with the lead generation or the qualifications form on mine, and when I click the link, it doesn't have it. It's asking me to fill out the required fields again.
Okay, it's not saving the data. And you're using qualification or application?
I'm using the qualification details, which is only one page. It does not have the save and next.
Okay.
But I clicked on the same link in the same email that I received initially, and the data is not there.
Okay.
So for filling out, if you're going to give a 6-page application to somebody, tell them maybe to print it out and write out the answers and then come back in and fill it out.
Yeah, potentially. Okay, and then I'll find out if application specifically gives us the, you know, again, this is an assumption for save and next, but if this particular web form is the diamond in the rough or is the exception to the rule that it's not saving data, you know, that this one be the one that saves the data because it is so expansive. So I'll follow up. Now, I have quite a few follow-up questions for this call today, which is awesome. For those for anybody that attended the session, what I'll try to do is get their responses and then email them out to all of you. So because I'm sure that if you're hearing some of these questions, even though you may not have asked it yourself, you still want to know the answer. So I'll go ahead and make sure that we get those questions back to you. And some of them are going to be system enhancements or feature enhancement recommendations that I'll place into the idea portal, like the visit tab details that Jamila gave us earlier. And then some things we'll be able to get an answer on, like the save functionality here, and whether this is the only one that saves or if others do as well. So I will do my best to follow up. AT is officially over. We've gone overtime, which I think is the first time that's happened in history. So if you have any further questions, please feel free to email me at training@franconnect.com. And then next week we do have opener checklists, and so you can go ahead and attend then as well. In the meantime, I'll get your questions back, and thank you so much for your time, everyone. It was a great AT again this week, and I look forward to speaking with you again. Have a great day.